First, I want to say that there's so many different facets of AI. And as I'm speaking right now, I'm sure there's new AI that we don't even know about yet. In the terms of AI and automation, let's think of what AI was. AI as in ChatGPT. What it does for you is you put in a command and it repeats an answer. But where we're going is something called artificial general intelligence. And artificial general intelligence is a little scary, maybe, if not used right, but we can prompt the ChatGPT and it's going to take it from there, meaning it's going to open up a browser and it's going to program automation in a manufacturing plant. And what that automation does today might be you're going to, again, program that automation. You're first going to say step 1, step 2, step 3, and the automation and that process is going to run step 1, step 2, step 3. What AI does when we integrate is, again, we'll input the task, input the prompt, and it's going to spit out that automation and therefore run the process without human input. Eventually, like I said, and how these two things are going to go together is we'll be able to have a predictive analytics, predictive AI running an automated process in a plant or a robot, which means in an inventory perspective or a logistics perspective, you might have inventory running low or shelving units need to be moved. Well, the automation is going to know where and what slot that everything needs to be in or the process that it needs to follow. But what's coming is the AI will then direct automatically without human input these changes live in the live environment. It's very exciting. I think it's the same across many sectors, many industries, and that is to make a process better, streamline an environment, cut costs rapidly, and prevent, I'll call it slippage or waste. So again, back to how these two things work together and how are they working together currently. Maybe there's some sort of inventory controls or a process that is currently running and running well. But what you overlay the AI into the environment in a process or in a system, it's going to predict automatically the better process, the better way that the automation should be running, the different way that we should be buying, or a supply manager is going to get real-time analytics and say, well, instead of needing this amount of quantity, we're going to need this. And oh, by the way, you can go to this supplier, that supplier, and here should be our costs. It should overlay the tariff pricing and the headwinds, and we should start to get a read on what the business, almost like a dashboard, will be seeing. Some real-world examples, it's sort of what we touched base on today. Predictive maintenance. What that means is knowing a machine is not operating to its potential before it has an outage. Quality inspections, so automated quality inspections being done before the human intervention, before there's an issue. So predictive analytics. We talked about supply chain optimization, which is really cool, which is basically, the AI tool or the automation tool spitting out some sort of report in a live environment or a dashboard to the stakeholders, what needs to be bought, how to do it, what's the need. But again, once we get to where I think we're going, that artificial general intelligence, that human intervention won't be needed. There'll be an overview, maybe an approval of what's going out the door via email, via the supply system into a CRM system. So there's going to be those controls of what's going to be inputted into those systems, but it's going to be handed to you, delivered to you. It's exciting. And I think one thing comes to mind, and that is optimizing labor schedules to align resources with the demand. It's as simple as that. So improving labor efficiency by allowing human workers to focus on higher value complex tasks. Here's the good news. You don't need a large budget because a lot of these tools that can be implemented are run off of the commercial apps that we know. Let's just take ChatGPT, for instance. ChatGPT has two built-in systems. One is called Agent, and one is called GPT, or Custom GPT. What that means is any system within the plant, or any system in a small business, like let's take Oracle or Salesforce, has a value, an API token, which can connect concurrently to a ChatGPT or a Grok or a Google Gemini, and what it can do is limitless. So back to predictive maintenance in the plant, or predicted productions optimization in the plant. You can have these tools for $20 a month for a ChatGPT Pro version running a predictive model, and to make sure that all the systems are up and running as needed. We can get an alert before the CEO has the coffee in the morning that there needs to be something done to the machine. Or fast forward to a larger manufacturing plant like an Amazon or an AWS, where robotics can actually be trained by this training model to take the information from the AI system or the optimization schedule or the predictive planner, and it could go and start the maintenance before a human intervenes. What that means is you're running 24 hours. Your uptime is 24 hours. That's the larger idea, or the larger example. Again, back to the small business, you can run and customize these GPTs to do things for you for $20 a month. You could run processes. You could set up maintenance. You can set up with API tokens into mostly any CRM nowadays. And if not, if your CRM doesn't have a API token available to take these prompts, you can certainly set up a Zapier. And the Zapier is like a custom integration tool which hosts thousands of connectors and integrators that you can take, and you can set up these processes and these systems from scratch, no coding needed. Back to my comment about artificial general intelligence. It is a tool that's coming very fast, quick and easy, and is cheap and cheerful for a large company, small business, manufacturing plant, whatever sector you're in. More specifically for the manufacturing plant, you're going to be able to have your automation that's running today, currently, how it is, as is, and just overlay this AI. And the AI today might just take a prompt to teach and train the automation automatically. But where we're going is this notion of the AI can learn itself and adapt, meaning it knows that your schedule might be off by a couple hours, or your inventory is too much and it's affecting your bottom line. It's going to know that. And it's going to know that by the model that you trained. And it's called agentic AI. And it's going to be able to do swivel chair automation. It's going to be able to program your robotics. It's going to be able to change your systems. It's going to be able to rewire your code. So just think, if you have a system that you had in place on the manufacturing floor for 30 years, and it runs off of Linux, or it runs off of an older model OS or a different kernel. Well, this AI that you are going to be able to use and implement almost for free can rewrite your code live on the spot. Doesn't matter how old it is. It can retrain the model, and it's going to be able to do beautiful things. I'm going to use 3 examples, and it's really based on my feeling, the money spent, the total sales volume that's available for each sector, but it also has to do with competition. So I'll say the leaders are what you would think: your automotive, and your aerospace, and your electronics, and your tech. You would think that would be your leaders, because they have the money, they have to operate efficiently, and there's a lot of competition. So the production planners, the engineering teams, the operations managers are looking for a way to do things better with less. So I think they're going to be using AI more as we go forward. So they're definitely the leaders in the space. Fast followers: consumer goods, pharma, and food and beverage. There's a lot of regulation in each sector, so I think that's preventing them to be in that leader category because of just the regulation. Good regulation like the FDA. You think FDA and how it takes 2 years to go through product testing. So when the plant owners or the shareholders or the engineering team is trying to do something, and have operational excellence, it's kind of hard and hindered by what they can get approved, right? So that's all based on government approvals. Then I think lagging sectors would be something like smaller traditional manufacturers. And that's just because they haven't yet invested in the labor needed to run and train these kind of models or know what they're looking for. That said, there's good news for those sectors as well, which really is, if you take some time with a large language model and get to know some of the AI that's out there, like I said, some of these are free, they can train you on what you need to do to make your plant operate more efficiently. or say cost savings, or maybe things you wouldn't know. How to build a dashboard, how to buy better. Is your plant set up properly as far as a logistics perspective? All these things can be done with a simple prompt into your ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok.